get into it. Hello there, friends. This is Spencer Michaud, and we are talking today about the full moon in Capricorn. Hold on a second. Is everybody there? Oh no. Hopefully, is everybody seeing us out there? Sorry if you are. We're trying to figure out the technicalities of this. Okay. So today is the 22nd of June. Hello, everyone. My name is Spencer Michaud, and I am joined today with my good friends CV Henriette and Claire Moon, Dr. Claire Moon, of Aligning Light Astrology, and CV Henriette of Art of the Zodiac. And we're going to be talking full moon in Capricorn today. So I wanted to see if anyone is out there in digital land. If you are out there in digital land, please tell us where you are coming in from today, and let us know how your moon experience is going. I'm very curious to see how you're all doing. We're going to break down some of the details of the full moon today. We're going to discuss some of the Cancer Capricorn challenges, and then we're going to do an I-Ching reading after we go through the full moon, the last quarter square, and the upcoming new moon in Cancer. We'll touch on those things briefly. But those of you out there in virtual land, please welcome a new guest. We've had CV. CV, I'm always happy to talk with you here, and hope that you are doing well. And Claire, tell us more about yourself. You're new to the game here.
Yeah, thanks. I am new. I'm a late bloomer, so I did a different career first. I'm a pharmacist, and then I got lost and found my way to astrology. Been doing that for about 5 years, but I've only been practicing for about a year now. So I just started my own consulting practice about a year ago.
Nice. And I just saw that you were a guest on Chris Brennan's astrology podcast. What were you discussing with Mr. Brennan?
Yeah, pretty much that journey of going from being just kind of a lay person to a professional astrologer, and the steps that I took and kind of the things that I ran into along that path.
Nice. And we're a student of his programs as well, correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I finished his Hellenistic certification course, and then did the professional course, which was super helpful. That's part of what helped me do that change of career. Granted, I'm still a pharmacist. I'm sure I will still pharmacist, but yeah, so I've done his coursework and it's been great. Yeah, I have a few teachers. Like, I feel like I have my little pharmacy village that helps me, but yeah.
Nice. Multi-talented. Yeah, I feel like I'm channeling Mr. Chris Brennan today. We haven't seen, nobody's commented on it yet, but recently, I have to tell this story before we get started here. My daughter offered to trim my hair because I hadn't had a haircut since the pandemic started, and it was getting really long. And she sort of oversold her skill set a little bit and hacked quite a bit of it off in weird spots. And I got frustrated because I have Mars in my first house right now, and I just like, like buzz the whole thing. But it's nice. It feels like a energetic reset. And my daughter made me this really nice card about a female lion for Father's Day. So it was very sweet, and she had little facts about the lion and whatnot. So yeah, that's what's going on. Nothing else besides that. CV, how are you doing?
I'm well. I just can we see that card again? That's so cute.
Yeah, hold on. So this is the lady lion. Like, an audit says big Leo energy, badass, high up on her rock, surveying her queendom. Very high rock, impressive. She says, Do you want me to read it to you real quick? Is this adorable enough for
Yeah,
the
please.
audience out there?
Yes, so cute.
Okay, so I'm just making sure that we are. All right, there we go. Okay, so it says, Papa, lady lions don't have manes. They still look pretty frickin' cool, though. Female lions are the primary hunters of the pride. Although they are not necessarily as fast as the males, they are far more tactful and agile than their male counterparts. They may not be as flashy, but they are much more skilled at hunting and providing for the pride. Embrace your inner lady lion. You kind of have to. Sorry about your Leo maid again. You're a really good dad, and I've been reading a lot of books lately where the main characters are parents, and that whole parenting thing seems really hard. So major props to you for being pretty darn good at it. Love you a whole lot. Happy Father's Day. So that'll warm our hearts a little bit.
That is so sweet. So flippin' sweet. I can't.
Right? So I was like, oh, you don't have a choice.
I was
like,
so confused. I was like, why is the lady lion? It's so good. I'm crying.
yeah, it was great. Like she felt really bad because I was a little. It was a little shocking at first. Uranus was going over my my midheaven.
Yeah.
And Mars was in the first opposite Saturn, and I was like, oh no, what are you doing? And I'm leaning into it. I've got these beautiful like heart sunglasses, so like I can see the world through these rose-colored glasses now. If the lights get a little too bright, you gotta lean into it, right?
That's great.
But yeah, I think my thoughts on that, as far as is just wrapping it up with parenting, is, sometimes that's parenting in a nutshell, right? You're going to have some things where you have situations where you run into challenges, and you kind of have to make the best of it. And it's a humbling experience, right? It's like I'm going into 2 Saturn perfection years, and this is sort of what Saturn looks like on the surface, rather than that big Leo mane. And I think that, it's a journey. It's always a journey. It's always a journey. Hey, Deborah's here. Hello, Deborah. Deborah says, beautiful, tearing up. I'm glad that we can bring some laughter and some joy out to the world there today. And I'm glad that people are seeing the live stream, because I was wondering, it was a little quiet for a minute. Okay. So that was Father's Day. I hope that you all had a good holiday there. For whatever figures you have in your life that have had guidance for you. I know that we don't all have like the same situation with parental figures and things like that. I know it can be a hard day for some people. So, however you're tapping into that energy, I hope that you had a good one. So, what do you think? Full moon, Capricorn. How is that treating all of you? Claire, what do you think?
Well, I've certainly been feeling the Venus-Pluto situation. I will say that. And this will be in my 6th and 12th. So as far as I go, I just need to rest. That's what I need to do. I know it's like more activity, but like, yeah, I'm just going to chill. I'm actually just going to sit this one out probably in my like personal life.
Totally. Yeah, I think this is some Venus-Pluto energy here too, with the mane getting chopped. Funnily enough, I had Venus square my natal Pluto during this haircut type of thing. CV, how are you holding up?
This week feels much better than I feel like when Mars first went in. So wait, Claire, are you a Leo rising too?
I'm Aquarius rising, so everything's opposite for me.
Cool, that's fun. Okay. Yeah. So when Leo rising went to my first house, I felt like my whole chart was on fire, right? Like everything, like I was being pulled at the seams. And I don't know, like, ooh, whose background is that?
Yeah, that's mine. I'm
gonna
put myself on mute.
Don't scare. I'm like, I have way ADD. Anyway, I don't know. Like, I feel like something yesterday, maybe it's Mercury slowing down, but I feel like super just sun going into my 12th house, just feeling super like tired, kind of dreamy. I spent like hours trying to write on the sign of Cancer, which I did today, which turned into a series of poem-like things. Anyway, that's me.
Yeah, I'm feeling that with the sun moving into the 12th, just like wanting a vacation or a break or something of that nature. And it's weird too, is Mercury's stationing direct today. So we're getting a Mercury that's slowing down, ready to shift directions and maybe bring us some new messages as well. We've got a couple more people stopping by in the chat here. Jules the Fly says, the sunglasses are extra great. Well, thank you, Jules. I appreciate the kind words. Tarja is here from Finland and says, hi, what a parenting story. And Tarja and Tanya are both here. Tanya is here from inside my house.
Tanya?
She is my partner stopping in today, adding to the conversation. So that is fun too. I'm always happy to have her support when we're doing these things. I've had to catch myself recently that I don't say anything too personal or that we don't get like too feisty in the chat box about like anything that's going on in the household. So, okay. So thank you all for stopping by here today. I'm happy to hear that the two of you are finding your own way to manifest this energy. So just Claire, just to give our audience some context, what are your big three here, your sun, moon, rising?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I'm an Aquarius rising, Capricorn sun, Pisces moon.
Okay.
And most of my planets are just on like the upper left quadrant. They're all shoved up there.
So you're in the 12th house sun with me.
Yes. Yep. 12th house luminary club.
Nice.
Beep, beep.
12th house unite. Okay. All right. So we are going to kind of break down a few of the technical things with this moon, and then we'll like reflect on it together as a group and see if we can also get some feedback from the audience as well. So a few things I wanted to go through right away before we kind of, you know, talk to the audience a little more is I'm going to share my screen, and I wanted to show you the chart of this moon here. Okay. So we are looking at June 24th, 2021 at 2:39 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. So make the appropriate adjustment for your specific time zone. Okay. We have the sun in the first decan of Cancer. And I wanted to go through a little bit of a list for you for some things that we could break down. So first of all, the sun is peregrine in Cancer, which is a term that means it's a wanderer. It doesn't have any essential dignity. So the sun's kind of, you know, floating out there without necessarily any specific helpers. So that's something to keep in mind when we're moving through Cancer sun. Now, there are some authors in the traditional zeitgeist that talk about perhaps the sun being a co-ruler of Cancer and Leo together, which is really interesting. I saw Alan White talk about this, and something I'm curious to explore in the future. But the sun's going to be hosted by this moon in Capricorn, and the moon is going to be in a condition called exile. So it is in a place that is somewhat uncomfortable. It is the house of Saturn. It does have some dignity by being the triplicity ruler of the earth signs by night. And it's hosted by Saturn, which is an aversion to it. It's not able to witness its house at this moment. As far as tarot cards, and I wanted to get all of your feedback on this, we have the two tarot cards we're going to be dealing with here are the Two of Cups and the Two of Pentacles. And before we get to that, actually, sorry, I'm trying to just think about what the best order to do everything in is. The other planets that are making aspects to this lunation are Jupiter, that is in a pretty tight sextile with the moon, which is very helpful, I think. And then we do have Uranus aspecting and Neptune. But as far as other traditional planets, all the other traditional planets are not witnessing. So I really feel like this moon in general has quite a big Jupiter flavor, with Jupiter being sextiled. And Venus is co-present with the sun. So we have both benefics are present, even though we have the moon in a Saturn ruled sign. So any thoughts on that right off the bat? And
Maybe you can go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, immediately what it makes me feel like is I just have this sort of vision of like being kind of in like a lost place, like imagining something wandering, but having these sort of like secret helpers. Like there's something about this that might not be as painful as it could, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think there's definitely going to be some uncomfortable feelings,
Mhm.
but there's something that's going to be bringing us out of that. Some blessing, I guess, is what I'm feeling like. What do you think, Claire?
Yeah, I always look to the ruler of the moon, and in this case, that would be Saturn, in aversion. So it can't really, like you were saying before, it's not witnessing the situation. But certainly, I just feel like there is kind of a distracted piece from it a little bit then, and just the moon being in Capricorn and co-present with Pluto, it's kind of like, you want to get comfortable, but it's not easy to find comfort. I'm not really sure how Jupiter is going to manifest in helping with that. But certainly, if we try to be comfortable, it may take a little bit more effort, perhaps.
Yeah, it's a separating sextile from Jupiter, so
Mhm.
it would be better if it was applying, but at least it's like in the mix, I think. One thing that's just sticking out to me is this Venus Pluto opposition is we're just going to be coming off a separation with that. And I think that is going to play quite a role in the lunation itself as well. Have any of you had a Venus Neptune moment that's moved into a Venus Pluto moment over the course of the week yet? Because I was listening to um, my astrology teacher, Tutababa, talk about his he had like a story about going to a massage parlor and not getting what he expected. He was going for a massage and it wasn't that kind of place. Um, so I want, and there was this aspect was present when that was happening in his life, and it was kind of like this, thinking that you're having one type of beautiful experience and it turning into something that may be a little bit more challenging. And I wonder if that's manifested for anyone yet.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I personally was having some nostalgia this week that I was like, I like intellectually knew I was looking through rose-colored glasses, or on the contrary, just being like overly negative about it. Like I feel like the perceptions were just distorted. Like I see like just the words like diluted kind of or distorted come up for me when we're dealing with more diluted with Neptune. Your expectations are probably way off than what reality, is going to dictate. Yeah, and then Pluto just distorting things in general.
Totally.
Hmm.
CV, anything come up for you?
Um, it's interesting. I like that you brought up nostalgia because I've been feeling a lot of that like this week, and maybe it's because I was writing about Cancer and sort of this idea of nostalgia. But yeah, I think I don't know, maybe what I was describing earlier, am I suddenly like waking up in a fog, um, is the Neptune aspect.
Totally. Yeah, I always describe Neptune as like just, I feel like it just drains the life out of me. Like I know that people are like, oh, there's a beautiful moment happening, and I will say that on Father's Day, I took a nice walk near a river, and there were a number of swans on the river. It was very kind of a Venus Neptune type of like, beautiful oasis type of thing, very watery on that level. I did want to kind of talk about the Cancer Sun a little bit too, because CV and I were talking about this last week, and we started touching on some really interesting esoteric meanings of Cancer in general. And we're looking at this first decan of Cancer, which we can see as associated with the Two of Cups. And this is really like a union house. This is a gateway of life. They thought of the Cancer as a gateway of life and Capricorn as a gateway of death, where energy was leaving, where souls would enter and souls would leave at these particular gateways. And I know it's cliched to say like, oh, it's a portal or something, but like I dislike hearing that. But at the same time, there are certain times when, well, maybe there are energies that are coming in and going out. We see that with eclipse periods. And we recently had a series of eclipse where, everything was getting shaken up and we're sort of in this new chapter now. And one of the things that CB and I started touching on was this. I like the nostalgia thing that both of you are talking about, is this longing for a return to what Liz Green calls the Ouroboros womb. And I thought that was such an interesting term, right? It's just so like, oh, that's a good one. Or the Ouroboros womb. So, and we're talking about this in terms of our country too, like America, right? America being a cancer sun, and this desire to go back to some kind of time that may never have existed. And perhaps it's a longing for eternity, right? That we'll never be able to attain, but at least not on this physical plane. And I wonder if any of you out there in the audience, or you and Claire or CV, feel that with cancer, that automatically we get thrust into this like longing for something that may or may not have been type of experience. CV, what do you think?
Well, I've been thinking about a lot about this recently, and we had this conversation, and something really special. I feel like cancer, right? It can kind of carry you into that like heavy nostalgia. And I don't know, when I think of nostalgia, I think of a longing of maybe like remembering things through rose-colored glasses, like yearning for something that was. But then I was also thinking of people who are cancers. And I don't know why I spent so much time meditating on Jack White. I think he's such a great example. But I was thinking that like one of the beautiful sort of manifestations of cancer that I certainly never spoke of before is this sort of ability to bring the past into the present, right? In a way where it's not like sacrificing the other, like that equilibrium moment, right? So to like create a record pressing plant because you want the sound now, but you want to bring something back from the past. Yeah, so that's just something I've been meditating on, that ability to bring the past into the present as opposed to a nostalgia, a yearning for the past.
Totally.
Mm-hmm.
Claire,
Yeah, I like that. That's like, I feel like that's a coin with two sides, you know, like nostalgia can be, it can be comforting. It can be really nice. We can bring, you know, things from the past to the future that we should, versus like, you know, something that might be a little darker where it's like you're longing for something that really, especially with like the Pluto Venus dynamic here. And I can't remember who said it, but I read it in a book by Joseph Goldstein. Something about releasing corpses of past experiences. And I was like, dang, I should do that. But I definitely like that kind of nostalgia where it's like, okay, that needs to stay back there. And I mean, that's one of the things with cancer. It's so associated with memory. But yeah, I think there is something there can be really beautiful about nostalgia too, where, I mean, you just think about like ancestry, for instance, and how it's like the foundation of your whole family kind of concept, and in like a nourishing, growthy way, you know, not to be like trope, but yeah, and that can be really beautiful. So
yeah, I like that word, nourishing. That's something that came up a lot in my research with Austin Kopic's take on the decans. So he talks about this first decan of Cancer. He calls it a mother and child, and a lot of themes of nurturing come up in that. And one word that really stuck out with me that takes it almost a step further is he mentioned reciprocity. And I always like to get like the definitions of these. It says the process of exchange in order to gain mutual benefit. And I think that really resonated with me with the Cancerian type of vibe. And he goes on to mention that it's not just nurturing and providing like from mother to child. The mother also, like the moon that goes through phases, consumes things. Because when we're talking about Cancer, this is the house of the moon. And the moon, it waxes and then it wanes. And it is bringing things into form, but also taking them out of form, right? Returning them to the earth as well. And this kind of push and pull between what feeds us and what we're going to transform into energy that we then can provide nurturing for others. My experience yesterday, I don't know if you all saw my Instagram stories, but I went on a walk yesterday and there was this little baby skunk that was walking around. It was very cute. And, but it was like hobbling around, and there's these two dogs that came around the corner that were barking. I was like, oh no, baby skunk. Like, don't get eaten, baby skunk. And it's kind of this interplay of like, new life and like maybe protecting it from danger on some level, and also what are we going to take into our bodies that is going to get transformed into things that we can use then to provide for others. And I think that there's might be just some real challenges with that, with the moon being in Capricorn in particular, and that Venus Pluto opposition kind of reflecting that journey. I always think of that journey of Inanna and Ereshkigal. Are you all familiar with that story? So Inanna goes into the underworld to have an audience um, with her sister Ereshkigal, sort of like Pluto, and she goes through these gates and is stripped of everything, and then eventually is like hung on a meat hook by Ereshkigal. It's a really gruesome story, but then is rescued and is reborn. And I really feel like there's a releasing of, like you said, maybe the old traumas, the old challenges. I've been feeling that really heavily through this lunation cycle. This uh, shaving of the head, I think, was a a metaphor or a symbolic gesture as well for like releasing all of the really difficult emotions that I had been feeling over the pandemic in the last 14 months or however long it's been. It's been real. It's been a real challenge for me to rejoin society, to be 100% honest. I've been really, really uncomfortable. And I wonder if you all are feeling that, and if how you've been working through that purge, I guess, that release of the last however many months we've been going through this as a collective.
I I feel like I've probably been dealing with it very slowly, and it's probably going to be like a year from now, and I'm going to still be
Yeah.
dealing with it. But I too have been struggling quite a bit because I am an introvert, 12th house luminary club. But I've been like social anxiety was kind of under control because I was used to it. But after a year of not being around people as much, going back it's not a joke for some of us. Like,
It's hard.
don't make me.
Yep.
Yeah.
What do you think, CV? How's it been for you?
It's been like so this morning so Spencer and I were both in Michigan, and today is the first day that officially you don't have to wear a mask places.
Oh, wow.
So
Wow.
I woke up at, I go to a 6 a.m. like Pilates class, and I went running in the studio late for class, and I realized I had my mask on me, and the teacher's like, no, you don't need it. And I'm like, are you sure? Yeah, you do. It was like the first class ever without a mask, and it was so strange. And then like after, I just noticed I'm not as I'm not as worried about getting sick, and but so after that I went to get a coffee, and I go in, and again I'm like the first person there, and it feels weird. I'm like, sure, no mask. Like it was just this awkward. It's interesting too that Mercury is stationing direct today, right? Because it just was this weird awkwardness in communication, because I'm like being like, is it okay? And she's like, yeah, you don't wear a mask. I'm like, but are you okay? So I'm like trying to make sure she's okay, because I don't want to offend other people, and I want them to feel safe, because I don't know what's going on. And it was just this whole awkward debacle. And that, all happened before 8 a.m.
Wow. Yeah, I totally feel that.
2 hours into it.
That's for
Totally
real.
feel it. I mean, yeah, I'm still working through it, right? I may go for a walk with a friend for the first time outdoors, in that many months. I mean, we've been really just sheltering in place and kind of doing all of that kind of thing. But I think that it is going to take time. And I think that for my part, I don't think that we all have to completely just rush into it and like say all bets are off. I think that if you feel uncomfortable with these types of things and you've had trauma, you work through it one little step at a time. And it doesn't have to be an all or nothing type of thing, because I'm with you, Clara, as far as the 12th house, a little bit of social anxiety just in general. And then having to go from feeling that, sense of, well, the danger is actually real, to like, oh, wow, is it in my head, or is it actually a real risk that we're taking, right? That is a tough navigational type of thing to go through. So I'm seeing some comments here. I'm going to kind of check in the chat box. Jules the Fly says, Claire, I am happy to know that there are more scientist astrologers out there. Heard the astrology podcast, can so relate. I have to be careful in the scientific community as well. Okay, so there's some nice feedback, Claire.
Yeah, thank you.
They
Also
also
sorry.
yeah, we're all trying to make our way here, aren't we? Jules also says, I'm from Germany, and here any type of non-scientific belief is kind of frowned upon anyways, especially in academia. Yeah, can you talk about that a little bit, Claire, and how you've worked through that and gotten over some of the hump with the, being part of these two worlds type of thing?
Yeah, I would love to. It has been kind of the crux of the journey is just wrapping my head around that kind of change, and really opening my mind. Because before, when I was, just strictly science-based material world, and when I say materialistic, I don't mean it in like a pejorative sense. I mean it in like the material world, like Earth. I used to be just solely in that world, and then letting kind of the spiritual world into my life was probably the bigger change. That was the umbrella under which astrology kind of came in. So there were other changes. It wasn't just kind of like this one little blip of astrology coming into my science life. It was like a lot of shifts in my entire worldview, and being like, suspending my disbelief, not being arrogant, being I say this like everywhere, but I'm just in love with the phrase right now. It's from Dr. Becca Tarnas. I think that's her name, Dr. Tarnas. And she talks about epistemological humility and being humble about what you know or don't know. And I had not had very much. And, I think some of us struggle with that a little bit. But certainly when astrology came in and I had let it, and I explored it more and found out I was wrong, and found out, why Ophiuchus isn't the 13th sign, and all these things where there's like literally a one sentence answer I could have just looked up, but I was too, dismissive. So yeah, that was a lot of change. But as far as like how I handled it and how I dealt with it, it was like several years of cognitive dissonance and wondering if these were things that I had to resolve or not. And then eventually I think I just kind of came to the conclusion that I don't need to resolve it. It's not my responsibility to resolve these kind of duality situations. It's arrogant of me to think that I can, right? The world is big and I don't know a lot. So as far as like holding space in my life for both a materialistic, scientific, modern, contemporary worldview, and then still holding space to use the other metaphysical modalities of whatever we're using them for. I just, it's as simple as that. I just hold space. I've just made more space for it. And I do keep them pretty compartmentalized though at this point in my journey. I really don't try to superimpose scientific theory onto metaphysics, and I don't try to do it the other way either. As much as I don't believe in non-overlapping magisteria, like there probably is a Venn diagram or something of all of this, but in my personal practice, in practical terms, in daily life, they're separate. So that's kind of how I've ended up. But ask me again in 10 years and it'll be different.
Yeah, I feel you on the humility part of it. Yeah. And I think that you go through those cycles even just when you're studying astrology. Like I feel like I have a lot of Mercury energy in my chart, with a lot of planets ruled by Mercury ruled signs, and it's always, when a question gets answered, there's 10 more that come up, right? And it's like you're instructed on what you don't know. And I think that 12th house sun energy too is like, where the universe is constantly like, oh, you thought you knew this? Well, here's this super humbling experience. Like, it's like, oh, you feel a little high on your horse a little bit? Okay.
Not today. Not today.
All right. Of course, CV doesn't have to deal with that. She has exalted sun in the 9th house, but
but I have Mercury and Pisces, so it's like I'm always kind of underwater.
My partner has that.
You feel that? Like,
and he's a technical writer, if you can believe it.
Yeah, I'm a writer too, not a technical writer. I'm curious to know, does he write slow or fast?
Slow.
Me too. Yeah. I always want to, like, I write tiny.
Yeah, a little digression, but like I feel like it's totally just the expansiveness of Pisces and like everything is important and like to pick what is gets to go through is like really hard.
Oh, okay. I feel that so hard. Sorry, I was writing all day today, and I like have to set timers and to go slow, and I like worry over commas. You wouldn't think so, right? It feels very Virgo, right? Like I worry over commas and words and okay. So anyway, thank you for that digression. My heart will at ease now. 12th house suns. Such an honor to sit with both of you.
Yeah, and you know that Mercury in Pisces too. I think it just is doing things in a way that is trying to unify all the parts of the whole, right? Where it instead of Mercury is really good at separating things out into categories and saying, okay, this belongs here in this space. And Jupiter, one of Jupiter's actions is to bring order to, that was what Zeus was doing in the myth, was trying to bring order to the universe. So when you have a planet whose function is to create differentiations, and it's only being fed, the elements, the clay of
Yeah.
order and unity, that's like, oh, it's a little bit like you're going to have to do things in a slightly unorthodox type of way. This is something Sam Reynolds has been bringing up that I really like and agree with, is that it's not that the planet can't be completely dysfunctional. It's just that it's going to have to do it in a way that is not the social norm on some level. So you have to kind of like, put things in place to make sure that you're able to get what you need to get done. Okay, a couple more comments here. Top Notch Vintage is here. CV, our friend from Instagram. Leanbach for 3 caps seems healing. I'm not sure what Leanbach is, Top Notch. Do you know what Leanbach is, CV?
No.
Okay, well, we'll have to get clarification there. The outstanding feature is recuperation from illness or attack, with a fantastic ability to recover from illness or to pick himself up after being told off or put down. Okay, I have some thoughts on that. I'll come back to that in a second. Top Notch also says, your comment mirrors my post today, CV, great minds. Tanya says, feeding the ancestors is a huge part of my spiritual practice. As we nourish the past, it lends us its power in the present moment. And she says, team social anxiety, hashtag team social anxiety. Also 12th house sun, Tanya is.
Okay,
yeah, we're in 12th house sun land. Just like, should we go? Should we go? Is it safe? I don't know. Maybe we should just stay home. And then Jules says, do you also have the urge sometimes to do astrology scientifically? I can't completely shake the urge. I'll toss that to you, Claire, real quick. So what do you think, the scientist doing astrology?
I think that, yeah, like I have a whole spreadsheet full of like research questions that I have. But the thing is I haven't like gone through them to see if they're even good questions. They might be stupid questions. And the other thing too is like, I've actually done independent research. Like I've been taught how to do all of these things, and it did take quite a bit of teaching. So, I mean, what I would say is I don't think there's anything wrong with running the astrological lens also alongside, like you're looking through an astrological lens and a scientific one at the same time. Sure, like do whatever you want. That's fine. But there's certainly plenty of people who are very much more prioritizing like more of the spiritual sacred divination space that astrology creates, which I just think we can hold space for all of it. We can hold space for that kind of prioritization, or like, we have like, what is it? The NCGR, ISAR, they are more organizations leaning toward research type ideas. Yeah, we can do all of it, but just know how to do your research. That's all. Like, just know how to be critical, know how to use that scientific lens. Because if you don't know how to use that lens, it doesn't matter how good of an astrologer you are, your research is not going to turn out well. And we've seen that because there's been studies done in the past. I now don't remember what any of them are, but I feel like there was a French one about Mars or something in athletes.
Yeah,
and you look at the
gold cooking. What was that? What was this?
Oh yeah,
CV?
Gauquelin? No.
Gauquelin?
Yeah.
You're right.
Is it Mars in the midheaven? Was that it?
Yeah, something like that. And it's like, if your study methods aren't good, it's garbage in, garbage out. And then once you get your results, if your statistical methodology isn't good, like if you don't have a sample size of above 50, above 75, I like to go no lower than 100. If your sample size of a study is lower than that, the statistical methodology to see if it's even statistically significant, it breaks down and the math doesn't work anymore. So if you don't know these things, you're kind of starting off with a non-starter. So as long as you know how to do the research part, like, go for it. Would love to see what you find out.
Yeah, and CV and I have talked about this in the past in reference to a book called The Moment of Astrology by Jeffrey Cornelius. And one of his arguments was looking at these scientific studies with astrology and saying confirming just what you said, that there's a different, you definitely have to have your methodology on lockdown and consistency with it. And that's very difficult to do, especially because different astrologers use different methodology to look at the same thing. That's number one. Number two is that he leans more into that divinatory way of astrology being practiced, where there is the astrologer, there's the chart, and then there's the client. So we have these three things. And then we have this fourth thing that's really created, that is the oracular space that is created by the interaction between all of them together. And that's really difficult to reproduce consistently from one moment to the next, because it's unique to each individual. I think of, like, we'll go down a rabbit hole here, but I think of like quantum physics on some level, if you're familiar, like, with some of that, where some of the experience where an atom would snap in and out of existence based on a particle and a wave, right? Where you had a wave of possibilities, but something would snap into existence into a particle form because of the experimenter's attention to that particular thing. And that's always been fascinating to me, as far as how astrology works, is some of these things snap into existence because we're looking at it. When I do a chart, I ask somebody a question. I'm not just going to look at a chart and say, just tell me what you think. Like, you have to ask them a question, like, what do you want to know? Because the chart is going to be able to tell you a million different things, and you have to kind of know what you're specifically looking for, I think, on some level. So I think that's a really interesting way to think about that too.
I like that metaphor.
I'm seeing Top Notch says, hold on a second. We see Top Notch says Esther V. Linebox, Degrees of the Zodiac, as a clarification for the earlier comment about 3 Capricorn seems, and I want to touch on this, Top Notch, because I have some information for you that really echoes that. That's going to be a great lead into talking about the moon. So 3 Cap seems healing. The outstanding feature is recuperation from illness or attack with a fantastic ability to recover from illness. Here's something fascinating about that, Top Notch Vintage. The daimon of the first decan of Capricorn is a deity named Asclepius, who was the healer. And this is a perfect metaphor for kind of what we may be trying to accomplish through this first decan of Capricorn. What we're looking at here is the Two of Pentacles. And there's 2 themes that I wanted to touch on with this and open it up for discussion. So with the moon's condition, we have it in exile, and it does have triplicity dignity, which is sort of like maybe the support of your guild or your community. But this one is called harmonious change, or change in Book T in the Book of Thoth. Austin Coppock calls it a headless body, which is interesting. And he's really talking about trying to figure out through this card the advantages and disadvantages of a physical space. So in Capricorn, he talks about really getting into the body. I think both Cancer and Capricorn are body related on some level. Like with Cancer, we're infusing spirit into a body. Like if we looked at the thema mundi, right, the metaphorical natal chart of the world, we have Cancer on the ascendant. And this is where the spirit, the pneuma, is fused with a physical body. We have the Cancer associated with the moon in the body. And then Capricorn on the descendant, maybe there's something leaving, there's a separation. But he talks a lot about this earthy Saturnian experience, about the genius loci. This is something I wanted to touch on. The genius loci, the protective spirit of a place. And the juggling that he talks about in this card is the pros and cons of a physical space. Like, where are you going to plant your seeds? Where are you going to, for this particular lunation, where are you going to build your nest? Right? If we have all these little babies around, where are you going to put down roots, build your nest, and see what the advantages and disadvantages are of these different locations? And potentially having to juggle domestic versus professional responsibilities as well. I think that there is, we're trying to create security on some level, but I think it's gone about in a different way. So I wanted to open up all of your thoughts on that with this first deck in Capricorn Moon, and thinking about that tension that we feel between nurturing and maybe where we want to build our nest and how we want to create the material structures and the material security versus the emotional security. And I think that we've got a nice guest today because, Claire, you're a Capricorn sun. I'm a Cancer sun. I'm sure that we approach this on a similar level. And CV, you're like kind of in the, you're going to be our good reference for the first quarter moon, which is in Aries. So you'll be able to tell us all about creating the sovereignty that we need to create as individuals. But I'm going to open this up. I'm going to throw this to Claire first, as far as like, first of all, do you feel like that tension between creating domestic and external security? And do you agree with that, I guess, first of all?
Yeah, I agree with everything that you've said so far about it. I feel like they're both connected through like this cord of nourishing waters, and Cancer just kind of likes to more stay in those and grow and do that abundance thing. And Capricorn, and this is based more off of like Jason Hawley's myth work, which is incredible if anyone has not gotten on that. Capricorn being more like, okay, we can build, but we're going to build up out into the world. But there's still ideally connected and balanced, and the goat doesn't go too far away from the nourishment, and Cancer doesn't cloister itself away in protectiveness forever. So that's kind of how I approach it personally in my own chart, especially being it's on my 6th 12th axes. It is a lot of times like, all right, you're working too much, you're not resting enough, you need to pay attention to your brain. The domestic work thing, I feel like, I don't know, that's always just been a thing for me. I don't have any planets in Cancer that I'm aware of, except for I think Lilith is in there, but I don't know what she does. No idea. But yeah,
Not
I
gonna get
guess
much from me on that. I don't know much about I know a little bit about the asteroids, but
yeah, it's certainly about balancing like the outer and the inner worlds for sure, and making sure that I'm not burning myself out. That's kind of how I approach it. And as far as like this full moon in particular, this idea of, and with Pluto being co-present and Venus being co-present, looking at where we're putting our abundance. Are we sharing our abundance with people? Are we sharing it with the right people? Not being manipulated out of our resources? If we're going to be picking our nesting site, is it the place where we want to put all of that growthy Cancer stuff we just did? And being really discerning about that. But yeah, I didn't realize all three of us have like the cardinal cross, like we got that cardinal energy.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, CV's got the Aries sun. Yeah, this is a cardinal, definitely a cardinal show. But we all have fixed risings though too, so we're trying to balance all that out. I know the fixed risings are getting rocked right now. So if you have
1 out of 5 stars, don't recommend.
Yeah, if you have Leo, Aquarius, Scorpio, or Taurus rising, you're feeling the full force of Mars opposite Saturn squared Uranus right now, which is not a super, from my experience, it's not super fun. You might end up without your full head of hair in one day, and you might end up getting severely humbled in a lot of situations that you may not have a lot of control over. I think that's something that I had a professional situation where there was some things I didn't have control over, and a lot of frustration was starting to bubble over. And I think that this was a manifestation of that too. It was like, I need to have control of something. And if it's just my own body, if it's just my own space, I think that could be something people could be feeling right now too, is there might be a situation that is out of your hands, and you have to kind of bring that energy back into the into the body, into the internal circumstance, so that you can deal with things you can control. I wanted to touch on the Asclepius thing for a minute too, and just piggybacking more on that Capricorn moon. I think the Capricorn moon, with it and being in exile, is maybe a little bit of feeling uncomfortable in the body, where we're not necessarily feeling super good about being incarnated, or about generating. When the moon, a planet of life, is in the house of death, it is a little bit of an awkward kind of thing, like CV was talking about with Mercury being in the house of Jupiter. And one of the things I wanted to talk about with this is, so recently I've been going through not just this, but I downloaded a fitness app recently, where I count my calories. Because you're getting to like 40 and you're starting to think like, oh man, I can't eat the way that I want to. Like, I'm Cancer with a Taurus moon. I love food. And
Yeah.
Tanya is here in the chat. And she's very good cook and chef, and provides really well. She has a Taurus moon too, so it's a bonding thing. But learning that, where are we seeking our comfort, right? If what we're seeking is nourishment, is not providing what we think it is, seeing the corruption behind it potentially. I think it's not that we weren't eating healthy, it's just that I was just eating too much. It's now, as your metabolism slows down, portion control. And I think this might be a theme with this moon too. And I'm curious if all of you have had some experience with this, or people in the chat with maybe what you thought was nurturing you is there's something that is being exposed, like Venus going into the underworld and coming face to face with the corruption of Ereshkigal. And I think of Pluto as the clogged toilet planet. Like, there's just something in our lives where, like, we've ignored it to the point where the the whole toilet's gonna, if you keep flushing it, it's just gonna like explode your bathroom into this disgusting wasteland, and you've got to deal with it. You got to plunger your life. So I'll toss that back out to the two of you. CB, what do you think?
Oh, wait, you're leaving me on the plunger?
yeah, I'll give you the plunger of life here. I give Claire the easy questions. You get the plunger questions.
Get the plunger of life. I don't.
Your sewer perspective.
Okay, skipping back from that, where recently, I don't know, like, okay, so where have I been feeling like maybe you're eating too much and you realize you think it's comforting, but it's maybe, I think I've had this realization in my moon's in Gemini, with like my thoughts, like literally coming to the realization that like I have bad mental habits. Like, I need to control the inner dialogue. I try to read all the books at once, and it like is not serving me. And so that's been a realization. I'm so fascinated just to be with the two of you, right? The Capricorn sun and the Cancer sun. Because like, I don't know, I've been thinking about this a lot lately and I think we talked about nourishment, but I feel that both of you, and I'm curious to like get your feedback. I had this really beautiful realization about Capricorns recently. Like, I think we know, like, oh, Cancer, they're, I mean, I think when you and I talked about it, Spencer, it's really about like a preserving. There's something you want to preserve, whether it's a family or a lineage, or, I think of like water, like, milk, nourishment, right? In that sense. And that's easy enough. But I think that people like Capricorn, you realize that like, I feel there's almost a fear in Capricorn. Like, this thing exists, but now I need to keep it alive. Like, this realization that death could come. And I just like, I had this really beautiful story about speaking of home and all of this. Recently, a friend of mine is a Capricorn. He seems very Capricorn, like always sort of working and feeling very industrious and whatnot. But, someone in his family needed help. And I realized that, like, he's the kind of person that suddenly, like, money's not an object. Like, he is industrious so that he can take care of the people in his family, like large sums, it doesn't matter, literally to give them a home. And suddenly realized there's something about like that axis. It is taking care of people, right? Like, there's with the Capricorn, I feel it's more of like trying to preserve your physical needs. Like, Cancer is the one who starts the thing, but then Capricorn is like, let me not let you die because I love you so much.
So Claire, what do you think? You're the
I
Capricorn
agree. I
sign.
agree 100%. And actually, I just have to speak about Jason Hawley because his work on this. Are you familiar with it? Did you listen to it?
I saw him talk
Anyone?
at NORWAC, and I've seen him talk
Not on this.
at UAC as well, but not on this particular topic. I think, what
Yeah.
did we see him do at NORWAC CV? What was he talking
It's
about
the
there?
circle of animals.
Thank you.
Yeah, the circle of animals.
Hmm.
He's a
What
character.
what lecture are you referencing? Because I'm gonna write this
So
down.
he did lectures on each of the signs and he took you through like the myth of each zodiacal sign. And so he's got 12 lectures out there now. They're all on Astrology University. I think
Nice.
that's the website
Oh,
where they
thank you,
have.
through Astrology University.
Yeah, I think I don't remember what they are, but the Capricorn one. Like
Okay.
it was the first compassionate view of Capricorn that I have ever heard. And as someone with a Pisces moon who's like, I am soft. What's this Capricorn business? It really helped put it together. But you're essentially saying one of the archetypes of this is that um the ideal of Capricorn, I think, has been lost in, not to get political, but in capitalism, it's like the shadow of Capricorn. It's like, but the ancients thought, Mesopotamians, that if you're doing Capricorn right, you are building up, you're building something, you're creating something out of the abundance that you have, but you're doing it without forgetting the needs and desires of the people, that part.
Yeah.
So once you forget that, that's, in my opinion, when everything goes to crap. And then you end up being this cold, industrious achievement monster who has who has deprived themselves. Speaking of moon and Capricorn, Capricorn planets deprivation.
Hmm.
Yeah, Capricorn's really good at that. I mean, the winter, that's what you do in the winter. You got to ration stuff, right? So yeah,
Contraction, right? The contraction of
yep.
Saturn.
But in the name of survival in the long run, because
Right.
every winter it's like there are bulbs under the ground that their intention is to grow in the spring. And I think that's Capricorn's intention as well, which is exactly what CV was saying. Like, yeah, that. And then once you kind of connect that with Cancer and you see it as like this place to balance in your life, it becomes like, for me, it's very encouraging. Like, hey, you can build stuff if you want to, just don't forget to take a bath and like feed yourself, and don't forget to take care of the people you love while you're doing that amazing stuff out there in the external world and achieving things. But it can be in the name of like long-term growth and continued achievement.
So I wanted to say, I find it also fascinating that we have 3 seasons represented here on some level too.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
this is really cool. This is a neat way of thinking about this, I think. So we have Claire representing the winter solstice, where we are seeing the return of the light, right? Where you were born shortly after the winter solstice, and it's this realization that that you need to buckle down to bring back the abundance, right? And to slowly inch your way up from the bottom to wherever you're going to get. My daughter's a Capricorn sun too, and she's very much like that. Like, she's had a little bit of a rough go in the beginning of her life in some areas, but I can see her just like she's known what she wanted to do for like a long time, and she's just gonna keep on going. And with like the Cancer opposite thing, you've reached that peak moment. You've reached the height of the sun's energy, and you're starting to descend. And that's the nostalgia. That's the preservation energy, where you're saying, how can I maintain the zenith of this abundance? Right? That's what we're doing as a country. We're saying, how can we maintain the zenith of our abundance, no matter what it took to get it? Now that's the shadow side of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's that is such a good metaphor for Cancer, because Cancer, like I was saying, it's not only are we providing, what are we consuming to gain that that nurturing and that sustenance that we're giving. And in America's case, and I don't want to be too controversial here, but I don't think this is like a secret, we've exploited other countries, and we've sent our military into other countries and changed their form of government, sometimes forcefully, so that we can have abundance here in this country. And that's the shadow side of like you were talking about, the manipulation that might take place to create this feeling of maintaining beauty, this feeling of maintaining this abundance, this glory of summer. And in CV, you're representing the spring of the things coming, really this hope, and I think that to me, this really, I'm trying to work out my thoughts on here because I'm kind of excited about it.
Yeah.
I get like that.
Yeah. So blame my retrograde Mercury in the 12th, but sometimes I have to think about things before I say it. I think that one of the things I've talked about on this channel quite a bit is that we have to get comfortable with decay. We have to get comfortable with death in this country and in this world. And Tanya says, "Oh, girl, let's go there." All capitals. Capitalism and the commodification of the Capricorn persona. I feel that a great deal. She's a Capricorn rising. When society is structured so that it's always winter and you can never stop. Okay, I almost think that they feel like it's always summer and we're trying to preserve this abundance, but maybe that it's two sides of the same coin, right? Like we think that, oh, we never have enough. We never have enough. That might be the winter persona. And where Cancer's saying, oh, isn't it so great? Let's go back to this glory moment that may or may not have existed. And we'll do whatever it takes. We'll shun whoever. We'll hide ourselves in this little isolationist bubble, right? So that we don't have to interact with other countries. It's amazing. I've been making friends with a lot of people internationally lately. CV and I have been talking to some really beautiful people at all corners of the world, in some places that are sort of unstable right now, and just the things we take for granted here, just stability, that we could go out and like go to the store and not have to worry about, like, for the most part, not experiencing violence or something like that. Now that is not true necessarily for everyone, and I want to acknowledge that, but as a whole, there are more unstable places of the world. And I think that, I don't know, it's just really eye-opening to see that how we are not thinking as internationally, and that reflecting that Cancer energy of like staying within that womb, within that cocoon, within that shell. And I will say, I feel it personally, as far as like, I don't know, I'm a little scared to go outside the house. But we have to get over it, don't we? And we have to be brave, and we have to go and engage with things that sometimes make us uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. And that might be part of this full moon too, is getting outside of your comfort zone and exploring a little bit, like we're doing here today. We're getting outside the comfort zone. We're going, including more nations in the conversation, which is great. What do y'all think about that?
I looked distracted because I was trying to pull up. I suddenly thought about Michael Luton's Horoscope USA, and something in there he says, and I'm trying to find the exact quote, but something about like our Cancer rising nations that will bomb a country one day and then drop sandwiches the next. I was thinking about that Capricorn Cancer axis.
Totally.
So that's the thought I drop with you.
Totally. Mm-hmm. Jules says Capricorns can be tough to make sure they and their loved ones survive no matter what. Like those crazy goats who climb walls in the mountains, Capricorn is called Steinbock in German, which is Ibex. Oh, that's interesting. There you go. Naturally Amplified is here. Hello. There are many good father archetypes that encompass Capricorn and Cancer myths as well. Mm. If we would spend a moment embracing the Capricorn patriarchy that is living, caring, and have that conversation. Okay, I'm not sure. I'm trying to parse that out. I will say, on that note, Capricorn, there is a story about Precus, who was a sea goat. And basically Precus was witnessing his sea goat children, half fish, half goat, leaving and going onto the shore and losing their ability to think and to speak, turning into regular goats, because the sea was this like source of inspiration, of energy, of spiritual essence. And he was a son of Kronos. He was a son of Saturn, and he had the ability to turn back time. And he kept turning back time and he turning back time and getting his children to come back into the ocean. And every time they would keep leaving, and every time, no matter what he did, they would keep leaving the ocean until finally he was alone. And he had to accept that loneliness on some level. And he finally begged his father Kronos to allow him to die. And he granted that wish and put him into the stars as a constellation. And it's a little sad, but
That's
I think
so
that,
sad, but that's appropriate.
right? Well, it's that same, like, I think that desire to turn back time is inherent in both of these signs, trying to preserve the abundance of summer, but also longing for this other time in Capricorn as well. I think it's very similar.
Well, there's that appreciation for the past and old things, and certainly that part about being connected with the waters. We'll just call them the waters with a capital W, and having that be like part of a functional, whatever that means, Capricorn. I think that's really important.
Yeah, and I think both signs tend to construct barriers to protect something, whether it's a sensitivity or whether it's to protect something physical. I know that when Saturn was in Capricorn, there was all the talk about build the wall, and like all these walls. And I tend to think of Saturn as building walls, and the Capricorn version of Saturn being to keep things in, right? And then Aquarius is sort of everything that's outside of the wall, everything that has been cast into exile. And there's some differences too. I've been really enjoying this book, A Tiny Universe, where they talk about Saturn in Aquarius as the glass ceiling, where it's the ideas that you can't transgress, right? Like saying, oh, well, you can see visually that it's attainable on some level, but then there's maybe this fear, this narrative that's being constructed that keeps people from trying to go past a certain boundary. I thought that was an interesting way to think about it too. All right, a couple comments here. Naturally Amplified is clarifying, saying all patriarchs are not seeking power. There are loving masculine elements. Okay, yeah, we can get in touch with some of the masculine elements in the world. Now they say, I think of mothers as mothers of sons. We need to focus on the good elements of what patriarchs can be under the moon.
So like not toxic masculinity, essentially. I don't know if that's kind of where they're going with that. It's just not doing toxic masculinity. That's always a good thing, right?
I think so.
Yay.
Tanya says, yes, there is an unrepresented, healthy, masculine, fatherly archetype that I don't think we even see much of the time. Okay, yeah. So what does a healthy father look like? If we think about a traditional role, right? Maybe a boundary setter, right? Maybe somebody who is saying no, but for a reason. And I think that Saturn is definitely a no. There is a no that comes into place, saying this is the boundary, but it's for a reason. It's like grabbing the toddler from running into the street type of thing. And we have to be careful because we don't want to necessarily, we're not thinking about this in gender roles. This was just like, I don't know, help me out here. How can we think about this in a
An archetype?
Yes, in an archetypal fashion that takes into account the way of thinking about things that is not necessarily binary. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, these things are, if only they were so simple. It's just, yeah, these archetypes are complicated. They take many forms, depends on where you live in the world. But yeah, certainly there are going to be more skillful and less skillful ways of manifesting, of embodying the various polarities that we find in the zodiac, whether you want to call them gendered names or call them passive, active, day, night, yin, yang, all these things.
Yin and
There's
yang.
skillful and unskillful ways to do all of it.
Right, totally.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think we covered Cancer pretty well with the sun there. We've examined the Capricorn moon. We've talked a little bit about the daimon, the gates of life and death. Let's talk a little bit about how this might play out throughout the cycle. So here we have the the full moon, but I wanted to go to the quarter moon that we're going to be seeing, usually a crisis point. We're going to see the last quarter moon on July the 1st. So we're at the square between the sun and the moon at about 10 degrees of Cancer and Aries, respectively. So right about here. Okay. And CV, what do you have for this? What are you thinking about this dichotomy of energies and the tension we might feel, or the potential existential crisis we may be running up against?
Wow. I mean, I keep thinking about, right, like, so this Cancer sun, I keep thinking of this backdrop of just like processing everything, right? Like when I think of nostalgia, even in this current moment, I think of like this we're at this moment right now where people are we're re-entering society, and so there's this like loaded sense of like, where is time, like almost a weird nostalgia for the past like 13 months when we've created these little homes that now we're like stepping out of. So I feel like that stuff is coming to be processed. And at the same time, right, like look at like this Mars Saturn opposition. It's like this need to like, right, like I feel like this energy to do something, and then Saturn's like no. So I feel like, to me, and maybe again I'm very sensitive because I'm a Leo rising, it feels there's this like crisis point in the sky, right? And then Uranus is in the story too, but then suddenly it gets this like depth, like there's this musical like Cancer just making it feel so personal. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Especially the last part with Cancer, just making it all personal.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this quarter moon is going to be, we've got the moon in a Mars ruled sign. And check out what Mars is doing on that day. It's in an exact opposition to Saturn. So the Mars Saturn opposition is going to be perfecting right at the same time that quarter moon is going to be coming to term. So I wrote some notes down: nurturing versus our independence and our own sovereignty. I think that if we look at the cards with this, we've got the Three of Wands coming into contact with the Three of Cups. So we've got this celebratory energy where we might want to be, having these parties or something like that, or like seeking that nurturing and that abundance. But it's coming into contact with this energy of I see Aries as trying to create independence, and I like that word sovereignty. It's just establishing your own territory. That was kind of one of the things that they were talking about with, what was the word that they were discussing in Austin's book? Dominion was the word. Okay, so like if you're I don't know, if you were establishing a territory, you were establishing your own dominion. And I think that this could be the tension between, being part of a group and being part of a nurturing community or part of a nurturing family, and also trying to fight for our own individual voice within that group, or if it becomes too toxic to rely on the group too heavily, if that makes sense. And I think we see that reflected with Mars in Leo, trying to establish authenticity and identity, and Saturn asking for a need to see the big picture, and a need to see that your actions don't just fit into one individual thing. They have an effect on your other family members. They have an effect on your community. They have an effect on your country people, your global community, your universal community. What do you all think about that Mars Saturn opposition? Help me break that down here. Claire, what do you think?
Mars Saturn opposition. I mean, certainly I want to do the thing, and I'm feeling super passionate about it because it's Leo and Venus is also here with me. And then, yeah, the Saturnian no. And that's probably based on what's going on in larger society, because Aquarius, I would think. And then, Uranus is there, T-squaring it up, adding more, I guess, volatility. Maybe that's a good word for it, volatile. But yeah, certainly it looks frustrating, and it looks like disappointment may be in order for some of us, or just, if you need to express yourself, do so in a way that doesn't take anything from anyone else.
I like that.
Yeah.
CV, anything to add?
I'm still like sort of thinking about of everything you said and like what comes next. That the moon is in the second decan of Aries. Is that the sun ruled decan?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's interesting too that like the sun is ruling where that Mars is, but then also the just thinking about that, like again, thinking about, because the sun in Cancer, right, then ruling in some sense the 10th, but then also that second decan, and thinking about like that conversation that you just said of like wanting to do the thing, Venus is there, and then Saturn saying no, and maybe even like having to take like a step back to really reflect and go to that place. Like maybe the disappointment leads you to sort of like spend some time in those Cancerian waters. Does that make sense? Does anyone can help me further unpack that?
Yeah, and I can't help but think about Jupiter's impending retrograde back into Aquarius a few weeks later. So I don't know, I've been trying to pay some attention as to get my finger on the pulse of what people are doing outside my house since I'm not really there physically.
Yeah.
But just seeing a lot of people are, especially I have friends in Chicago that have been getting together and they're like, oh my God, people are just off the chain. They've been cooped up for so long that it's this like freedom. We are just embracing it and going kind of whole hog with it. And I just wonder if there's some kind of repercussion that may be coming with that, because I think that I tend to desire balance and equilibrium, and I think that when we shift the hourglass too quickly, it can be a little bit destabilizing rather than gradually going to the middle point. And I think that we've been in such an extreme circumstance for so long that we're just, when we didn't have to be in it, we're just like raging against the dying of the light. And I just can't help but think that there's just going to be something that comes up where we've been dreaming really big lately, that where it's just a reality check, where it's saying you're going to have to work with the quality of time, you're going to have to work with the quality of patience, and you're going to have to bring in some of those healthy limits once again, so that you're not, I don't know, creating a destructive atmosphere. Okay, let's go just touch briefly on what we're building towards here with the next new moon. And I'll do another live stream for this, but we'll talk about it a little bit today. So we're going to be moving towards this new moon in the second decan of Cancer. And it's going to be opposite Pluto, not super close, but by whole sign aspect. And I think that's really the beginning when we'll come to terms with how we want to cultivate our private gardens. I think that Austin Coppock talks about this decan as the walled garden and hothouse flowers. And this is actually the decan of my son. And I can definitely attest to that energy. I'm a eccentric, kind of quirky person that thrives in a certain environment.
Yeah.
And if I'm asked to be outside of that kind of environment, I feel really, really nervous. And it's been something I've had to work on to get outside of my own comfort zone, even if it's just physical, like just going outside and doing things like that and not being a total hermetic recluse. But I definitely feel that. And I think that might be what we're going to be looking at here with this new moon at the middle of July, which happens 2 days after my birthday. So we'll see how that works out. We'll have to have a new moon Spencer's birthday party live stream. We'll see how that works. Any thoughts on that new moon? Anything you're noticing in there?
I mean, I'm really excited for a lunation in Cancer that is not as like it's an inversion with Mars. That's nice. It's an inversion with Saturn. That looks nice. I'll take it. Sold.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not seeing anything super crazy with this one. It looks like after the tension of the Mars Saturn opposition starts to wane, we'll be able to find what we want to infuse into a body to really be like, okay, this is really what is possible. This is what we want to nurture to move forward and do that in a healthy way. Okay, so one more thing that we've got here. This has been great. How are you all doing? You hanging in there?
Yeah, I like that you said infuse into a body. It just makes me think of like all the like carnage of the that happens before, and we have to somehow, it's like reincarnation time.
Totally. Totally. I'm just looking at the chat box here, checking in.
Yeah.
Naturally Amplified's talking about the cardinal axis, which is self, other, society, and family. Okay, get some more clarification on the previous comments. Top Notch Vintage says, I think there's a desire and impulse to initiate a new home/tribe with Saturn saying, hold on, you need to do it in a new way for the benefit of all. Yes, I like that. Totally. We are definitely being asked to take into consideration how our actions affect other people. And I think that the pandemic showed us that in a really poignant way, that what we do, we are not these tiny little islands. Even if we felt like it during the pandemic, our actions did have an effect on others. And we do have to take the collective good into account. And it might conflict with our own personal desires. But I think that with that Jupiter-Saturn conjunction in Aquarius over the last solstice here, in the winter solstice, excuse me, that's going to be part of what we're moving towards long term. This is a long term thing. And I see this with climate change, and I've got friends on the West Coast where they're literally sizzling and frying in 115 to 120 degree temperatures for an extended period of time. And I think that that's going to be a theme that's going to come up more in the future as we move forward. Okay, so the last thing I wanted to do and see your reflections on this is I like to do an I-Ching reading. Actually, don't let me forget this again. You almost let me forget again, CV. So
Camels!
yeah, exactly. Before I get to the I-Ching reading, I like to, so I'm a fairly interdisciplinary divinatory person. Blame my Venus in Gemini. But I pulled an animal for this show, camels. And this talk, and I pulled the camel. And my good friend, my partner in crime, Tanya, has had this ritual of putting little notes in my daughter's lunchbox on Wednesdays, which is affectionately known as Hump Day. And they're camel facts. So she has a compendium of camel facts that I wanted to share the last live stream we were doing, because I actually pulled this animal for the new moon in Gemini as well. So this theme, I think that this theme is coming back around. It's like saying, okay, hey, we've got to camel it up here. So I'm going to stop my share for a second, and I'm going to show you I'm going to read to you some camel facts. All right. We'll see. And Tanya can chime in on the chat if she wants here. It says that these are all Tanya's words. They have a thick layer of skin on their feet and stomach that allows them to lie down and sleep on the sand that is so hot it would injure other types of animals. Okay. They can eat thorns because they have tough, leathery skin inside their lips and mouths. They have double layers of eyelashes and can close their nostrils to block out sand.
I am so jealous already.
The humps on their back are not water, but fat stores that they break down for calories and hydration when there's no food or water. Interesting. They have oval-shaped blood cells that can withstand levels of dehydration that kill other creatures. Basically, they're hyper-adapted to some of the most inhospitable climates on Earth, and they can live 50 years. When they do find water, they can drink over 50 gallons in 3 minutes, which would also kill other types of animals, but their blood cells and tissues can withstand extreme fluctuations in hydration levels. Their body temperatures can range from 93 to 104 degrees with no ill effects. And just to get Tanya's summary of these thoughts from this eclipse. It says, things are about to get really inhospitable and unpredictable. This is a time to be like a camel and drink all the water you can while you have a chance. Jupiter is about to roll back out of Pisces real soon and take all the life-giving water with it. Connection, ease, good feelings, hope. This may be a time to fortify ourselves and find how to toughen our hides, work with less than we'd like, and become weird-looking but unkillable. I love it.
That's so beautiful.
Isn't that amazing?
We're at the oasis. We're camels at the oasis. And then when Pisces leaves, we're back to the desert. Amazing.
She says, I think about camels a lot.
Oh my!
Thank you.
I want to hear Tanya's astrological comments all the time now.
Right?
That was like, yeah, wow.
Well, Tanya has she has Mercury in the first house in a mutual reception with Saturn in the 9th in Virgo. So
Nice.
She has a way with words. She creates her own language at some point, but very, very good with these types of things. Top Notch is saying, so they can drink from the fire hose, Spencer? Yeah, that's a running joke on our podcast here is, drinking from the fire hose like that movie UHF. And interestingly enough, thank you for pointing that out, Top Notch. Mercury is stationing direct right on the fixed star Rigel, which is what I reference when I'm talking about the drinking from the fire hose of information. Rigel is the foot in the waters of the Eridanus, the river of the Eridanus. So Orion's foot was in those waters. And I experienced that as like sitting on the little chair and having the fire hose just blowing me off the chair with information and then trying to make sense of it all. So Dimphy says, over here, my daughter and I have started finding a new way since her father and my best friend passed the 21st of May. Oh, I'm sorry, Dimphy, to hear that. I bet that was making this Father's Day a very difficult one. Fortunately, the two of us could spend and look after him since the April 1st when we found out he was terminally ill. Yeah. Dimphy, what is your ascendant? Do you share your ascendant? I'm curious if you're getting that fixed cross energy that we were talking about. So we'll see. Dimphy is a friend of ours from the Netherlands, I believe. We have quite an international crowd here. But sorry to hear that. I know a lot of people are going through some very tough times right now. And I like what Tanya was saying about the camel's a survivor. I mean, it's really adapted to some of the harshest, most nasty type of environments. Dimphy says that they are a Gemini ascendant. Okay, so you were having a Gemini Mercury retrograde in the first too. Yeah, sorry to hear that, Dimphy. I wish I had some more words of comfort for you. Sun Virgo, Moon Pisces, so very mutable. Yeah, I think that with the camel, right? We just have these circumstances. We have to make the best of it. I think that something we've been talking about in our household is toughening our getting a little bit thicker skin and toughening our hide a little bit. I'm pretty sensitive, and I don't always deal very well with criticism. So I'm trying to get tougher about that and humble myself, like you were saying, Claire, at the beginning of this, bringing it full circle. And I think that if we want, here's I think the tying the bow on it. If we want to achieve the Capricorn building, if we want to achieve that castle that we're trying to build, that security, we do have to toughen up a little bit. We do have to realize that there's going to be setbacks. We have to realize that it's going to take time, that we do have to have patience, and that there are going to be disappointments along the way. And, listening to your interview with Chris, Claire, I could hear some of the pain in your voice about having maybe not the acceptance of your peers with going out into this new journey. And I really applaud you for your camel-like resilience.
Thank you.
Really, truly, because it is a difficult thing to do. And you're coming from an environment that is so almost the antithesis of what we're trying to do. It's not really, but people think that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes enormous courage, fortitude, and strength to be able to take that leap and to be your true, authentic self. And from us to Leo risings here, CV, which I think we really try to embrace the journey of authenticity. I think that's a secret esoteric meaning of Leo, is just be the true authentic self. And as a Aquarius rising, it's really it's fascinating to see you go on that journey of authenticity in your own way. And
Mm-hmm.
so I wanted to say that I wanted to congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
And,
My progressed sun is exactly on my ascendant, like right now. So
very good.
I don't have a choice, I don't think. But thank you so much. It's really nice to hear that because I haven't. So thank you. That's very nice. Yeah, it's been rough. I'm tired of being a camel. I would like to be something else now.
Well,
but it's not gonna happen.
we can. I think we'll get a respite. Maybe towards I think the middle of July, end of July. I think that there may be some. Hopefully, maybe we'll get past that opposition. Although we will lose some of that good Jupiter, oceanic consciousness, dreamy energy. So the last thing that I wanted to do here, and this is something I like to do on the show, and I'm gonna share my screen for a minute because I want to draw it.
While you do that, may I point something out?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just want to share this moment since we're talking about Capricorn and specifically your Capricorn energy, Claire. Going back to earlier in this conversation when you were talking about your research methods, right?
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I forgot, but somebody asked about it. And I just, to me, this was such like a beautiful Capricorn quality because you were like, okay, if you're going to use the scientific lens, you have to make sure it felt so Saturn, like you have to make sure you're doing it correctly. You have to have a clear lens. You need this many people and this. And it felt so Saturn Capricorn of like, you need to do it like this. But then it was like, why are you doing this? Because you care, because you're like, because I love astrology and I love this. And this is how I preserve this thing. That was such a beautiful Capricorn moment.
Thank you. Yeah. And like thank you so much for seeing that. And then the pragmatism of like, yeah, you can do it. I don't care what you do. You know, you can do whatever you want. You know, if you want to build that, I support you in building it, but here's the right hammer. like, so you can do it.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Thanks.
You're
I like to think of Saturn sometimes like a loving, stern grandmother, kind of. Like that's the vibe I like.
I love that.
Absolutely.
I love that. Yeah, just piggybacking off of that, my Capricorn daughter has been a loving, stern grandmother since she was like 4 years old. Like her favorite show. I want you, can you all guess what her favorite show it was when she was a child? And it's vintage. No.
No idea.
The Golden Girls. Like that was her first. She's like, let's watch the Golden Girls all the time, which is the epitome of loving grandmothers. She's like, all right, let's just no, I watch the Golden Girls. You know, like
Great.
just
Not a bad choice.
it's hilarious. Okay, just a few more comments flying in here. We have a lot of condolences for Dimphy, a lot of support from the chat for their loss. So we're with you, Dimphy. Top Notch says Nietzsche describes the camel spirit as a collector of burdens, conquests, and scars. The camel asks, "What is heaviest that I may take it upon me and rejoice in my strength?" Ooh, I like that. I like that a lot. I think that speaks really well to maybe Saturn's ultimate goal on some level. Tanya gives us one more fact that camels can carry up to 900 pounds. As a third decan Sagittarius, she can relate. Yeah, that's the 10 of Wands card, right? She's definitely carries some heavy burdens for sure. Jules says, I have a lot of mutable placements. I wish I could do both scientific research and astrology. Saturn does not let me, though. Well, there's wiggle room.
I believe in you. You can get it.
Tanya says, good research is harder to find than people realize. I agree with that. So true, Tanya, says Jules. And Tanya also says she has Betty White's birthday. Yeah, my daughter has the same birthday as Betty White, so she is already the loving grandmother.
So
Leslie Friel says, I'm a Capricorn moon and ascendant who also loves the Golden Girls as a child. Yay! And I'm here for the stern grandmother analogy, right? Okay. I love this. I love this. So we're getting to that core essence, I think, here. So what I drew on the screen here was the hexagram number 25. I like to do an I-Ching reading for every kind of video that I do here, every lunation and the month or whatever we're going to do. And I got this without changing lines. 25 is called innocence. Other names for it are called without expectations, without guile, acting naturally, being spontaneous, the unexpected, disentanglement. So freeing yourself from negative patterns, acting from the heart and not necessarily for profit. This was a theme that was coming up. One of the quotes, the oracle quotes, says, innocence, supreme success. It is beneficial to persevere. If one is not what one should be, he meets with calamity, and it is not beneficial for him to undertake anything. So I wanted to talk about this with all of you, 25. The I Ching's experience of innocence is not necessarily like a Christian sin innocence type of thing. It is more about being genuine and sincere. It's more about being unaffected and authentic, and not using this not striving for something, if that makes sense. Doing the right thing without expectations of some kind of reward. And I think that this really does echo this full moon very well, because as a Cancer sun, I think that one of the things that I've been tasked to do is to come into alignment with the flow of life, as a crab can go forward, backwards, sideways, and having to make adjustments being on the border of the ocean and the land. You're a prey for a lot of things. That's why the danger element is so heightened in Cancerians. We're very aware of what is going on in our environment because, metaphorically, we're prey animals because we're so squishy. We're so squishy and sensitive. You could see that in my, like when I see a baby skunk and I've turned into a puddle on Instagram. Like, oh, baby, no, stinky baby, don't get eaten by that dog. But but I think that this, we may feel like we have to have a plan, right, with Capricorn. And I think that Capricorn is a planner, and that energy is about planning and about taking genuine, consistent steps towards a goal on sun level as well. But I'm hearing from what the I Ching is saying that we need to let go of control more so in this lunation, without trying to be something that we're not necessarily, and without going into things with preconceived notions about how things are going to turn out. So I'm curious to hear your feedback on that I Ching reading.
That sounds nice. I like that. We should do that. That's kind of, it sounds like my goal to be that way like all the time, but it's just very difficult for me to loosen my grip on everything. But yeah, certainly accepting that, like not tying yourself to the outcome, being unadulterated, being unrehearsed, like you almost can't help but be genuine when you do those things, which I think is good. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Totally. CV?
It made, coming back, it made me think about this idea of Capricorn feeling this sort of fear of death and this need to sort of hold on to preserve, and maybe where the moon is, right, like wherever Capricorn is in your chart, it's this showing you where like you may not have control, right, that like you just have to sort of like you said, have that sort of authentic sort of do it for the right reasons, and kind of take I'm gonna say a release. That makes sense.
Yeah, and just speaking towards letting go of control, Cancer, being ruled by the moon. Remember, the moon was the planet of fortune, right? It was the planet of 2K, and it was the planet of like, hey, you're going to have to surrender on some level to things that aren't necessarily through your solar type of agency, right? Because we could say the daimon or spirit being of the nature of the sun, where it's like, okay, I have an awareness of this, I want to move towards it. But the moon is more about like, okay, you're going to have to make adjustments to circumstance and things like that. So I think keeping that in mind as we move forward is going to be important with this lunation. A couple of final comments here, and then we'll wrap it up. Dimphy says, I'm becoming a golden girl myself. Well, Dimphy, we applaud your resilience, and hopefully you can be the grandma that we all need. Tanya says, cheesecake all around. Yes. No cheesecake. That's too many calories, Tanya. I have a very specific amount that I can eat now. Jules says, do you know Granny Weatherwax, a Terry Pratchett character? She is my total role model and very Capricornian, I feel. I am not familiar with Granny Weatherwax. We'll have to look that one up. And anyone else know Granny Weatherwax? No, sorry, Jules, but we'll do some homework. We'll do our research, and then we'll get to it. Okay, well, this has been wonderful, my friends. Thank you so much for hanging out today. If you are, well, let's Claire, let's start with you. Where can we find you, and what kind of things do you have in the hopper coming up?
Yeah, thank you. Every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Central Time, IG Live, I do an hour of just kind of like this, but very unrehearsed, very authentic. I just call it office hours. So if you have astrology questions, you can come there every Tuesday, 7 p.m. CST. Otherwise, I'm just doing consults. I've been really focusing on my practice and doing consults with clients. So if you want to be a client, you can visit my website, which is at www.aligninglightastrology.com. And I'm Aligning Light Astrology, Dr. Claire Moon, pretty much everywhere on the internet.
Perfect.
Thank you.
And CV, where can we find you, and what do you got going on?
Same. Consultations. I write a blog for Supernatural Lingerie. I'm thinking of that because I'm about to put Cancer out, which is a really fun lingerie shop. But I'm Art of the Zodiac on the internet, Art of the Zodiac spaces on Instagram.co.com. I sometimes make apothecary. It's fun. I chat with Spencer. I'm totally humbled and grateful to finally chat with you, Claire. And I will make your office hours. I'm so excited for this.
They're fun. I've participated in her office hours, and it is definitely a good experience, and she knows her stuff. That's why I've been inviting them on the show here, so that we get to share your wisdom, Claire, with a new audience.
Thanks, y'all. BYOB.
Yeah. And so also, if you are, thank you to everyone that showed up in the chat today. So really appreciate all of your comments and your participation. I'm going to try to keep doing these new and full moon live streams. I do want to tell you that there is a Astrology of July that is coming up on Friday, and I will be having another special guest, Ms. Shu Yap, who is an Australian astrologer. That's hard to say. She's an astrologer from Australia, and she's awesome. It's very auspicious. She's wonderful. And so she'll be joining me to break down July. So tune in at 6:30 p.m. on Friday evening Eastern time. And if you are enjoying these live streams, make sure that you are hitting that like button. That really helps us with the algorithm. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. All of us do readings here. Support us through readings. That's a great way to support your local astrologer. And you don't have to get just one reading. You can get a lot of insight by getting a reading from different people at different points in your life and getting that new perspective. That's something that I think is really beneficial. And there's a lot of talent that we have just even in this room. It's really, really exciting. Everyone out there, hang in there, be kind to yourself. This is a kind of what we like to say here. Be kind to yourself, be kind to one another. And I guess we'll see you all the next time. So thank you so much, everyone, for being here. Thank you, Claire. Thank you, CV.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
All right.
Thanks for
Take
being
care,
here.
everyone. We'll see you the next time.